Hi there, RC Girl here. Welcome back to part 2 of my Axial SCX10ii leaf spring truck conversion. This used to be my SCX10ii Jeep Cherokee, and I turned it into a Class 1 leaf sprung Toyota Hilux. This is the 4-door Mojave II body from RC4WD Drive. I fitted it to the SCX10ii chassis with some custom mounts. I cantilevered the rear shocks. We added a full MyTrickRC light kit with reverse lights. Topped it off with a roll bar rack and some cool scale accessories. I'm also going to add up how many scale points this rig would get if you're competing with the SORRCA rules. If you guys don't know what that is, stay tuned, I'll quickly go over that. This is my most scale rig to date. I think it turned out really cool. I'll go over all the products I used in this build and put those also in the description box. So if you guys want to see how this all came together, stay tuned. If you guys are new to my channel, welcome. Here you're going to find RC reviews, tips and tricks, run videos, flight videos, and other things related to RC. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you like and subscribe. Also head over to my Instagram and Facebook. I'll put that below here. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, so between videos, make sure to check that out as well. And if you guys missed part 1, I'll link that right up here. Make sure to check it out. I go over why the heck I decided to convert my SCX10ii Jeep Cherokee into this awesome looking truck. In that video, I also installed the RC4WD Drive leaf spring conversion kit for the SCX10ii and go over all my electronics, so make sure to check that out if you missed part 1. First, let's talk about how I fit the Mojave II 4-door body on our SCX10ii chassis. It did take a little bit of effort and a lot of conversations with people that have done this before. This hard body does fit a 12.3-inch wheelbase, which our SCX10ii is, but it's not going to be a direct fit for the SCX10ii. It's going to take a little bit of modifications. I didn't have to do any cutting with the method that I used. There's a couple different mounting options. The two that I tried are from cantilever and SHRINK-RC. They're custom 3D printed trays that mount to your chassis. You can directly screw the body into these rails. I actually ended up going with the cantilever option. It elevated the body a little bit higher. I was getting a little bit of wheel rub with my fenders here on the tires. These are 1.9 inner diameter and 4.19 outer diameter. So for a Class 1 tire, that is a little bit on the big end. So if you're running smaller tires like 1.55 inner diameter tires, you might want to go with the SHRINK-RC option. I think it looks a little bit better having the body sit down a little bit lower. I think both of these two mounting options are really great. It kind of just depends on your build. One thing I'm a bit worried about with this body is that there's 3 screws on each side that you have to take off every time you want to access your electronics or swap out a battery, which can be a little bit onerous. I might still look for a magnetic mounting option in the future, but for now, I think I could deal with it. Another thing with fitting the Mojave II 4-door body on the SCX10ii is that you're gonna have to rearrange your electronics. So as I was in there rearranging stuff, I cut the cables connecting my ESC to my motor a little bit shorter and also resoldered them. Just got a new soldering kit from Amazon. It was one of my Christmas presents. It's the Xtra 3020 model. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. So far, I really like it. You can actually set it to different temperatures. My other one was super cheap and only had like 1 heat setting. So this one comes with a couple different tips, a really thick tip, which is great for the Tekin cables, which are really high gauge wire. Heats up really quickly, super satisfied with it. Another modification I had to do is move the rear axle back a little bit. For some reason, the rear tires weren't centered with the wheel well in the rear. So what I did is I moved the axle back by moving the leaf springs back 1 screw hole, if that makes any sense. So they're sort of hanging off the end of the chassis rail. I think it's sort of a temporary solution. I might have to figure out something more long-term. For the front, I also had to remove the chassis brace because it was sort of hitting the front grille on the body. For now, it seems fine, but not ideal. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to shoot me a comment below. Another modification I had to do was to use cantilever shocks on the rear. The shock towers hit the truck bed, and people were like, don't cut into the truck bed, you should cantilever your shocks. So I actually had some cantilever shocks sitting around from Xtra Speed. They sent them to me a while ago for my TRX4, and they have a kit just for the rear. They also make a kit for the SCX10ii, but I think they're very similar, if not the same. I'll put a link to both of these kits in the description box below. The TRX4 one fit just fine. I took off the rear springs because, of course, I'm using the leaf as the spring on the rear and just using the damper portion. Really cool. I think it looks really neat. And best thing of all, I didn't have to cut into the truck bed. The next big thing I had to do was install a MyTrickRC light kit. MyTrickRC makes a couple different lighting controllers. For this build, I use their UF7 controller. It's a little bit more tailored for a scale-looking car. It also has a lot of flasher options, also good for aircraft. You can link the lighting to your steering and also your throttle, so it has functional reverse lights and also turn signals. Kind of neat. I actually opted to not use the turn signals. I thought it would be a little bit distracting out on the trail. For my headlights, I'm using their 19mm LED headlights. It has a switch on it where you can either power all 3 rows of LEDs or just the single row. Also have fog lights on the front. Also have amber lights on the front here. Super neat. I also installed a pair of their light pods underneath the wheel fenders to serve as rock lights. I just scooped them in and I think it looks really cool. On my rears, I also have another pair of amber lights, and then each light bucket has a series of 4 LEDs. So I have an amber, 2 reds, and then a white. I also have a spare pair of light pods that I might end up installing on our roll bar back here. As I mentioned, this lighting controller has a bunch of different lighting modes. You can plug the lights into different ports that'll operate differently in each of the modes. With MyTrickRC, it's super easy to pick your lighting controller and then pick whatever lights you need for your build, kind of a la carte. Really great way to customize your rig. Another thing to mention is that the original chassis rails had a built-in receiver box as part of it, so I couldn't just swap that out. I had to get a new waterproof receiver box. I also got this from Amazon. It's a Traxxas receiver box. I'll put the model number right here. I also have the same receiver box in my Pro MT 4x4 monster truck. Fits the new chassis rails perfectly. Let's take another look at our exterior features. So I picked the color TS78. This is field gray. I finished it off with some vinyl decals from RC4WD, including the Toyota emblem on the rear. The decal pack also came with some vinyl for the front hood, but I opted to not use that. I might put an RC Girl decal there. I also picked out this roll bar rack for the rear so you can hang your scale bucket filled with scale accessories. It required drilling 4 tiny holes in the truck bed. Came with the hardware that you needed, and also a couple mounting positions for either lights or hanging your scale accessories like your scale bucket. So the scale accessories, Proline makes a full line of scale accessories, so that's what you'll see here with this jerry can and this battery and then this fire extinguisher. This bucket was from Scale by Chris. I think I got it on A-Main Hobbies. And then you got your little shovel here. To install these, I used clear Gorilla Glue. This is my first time trying out this adhesive. I like a lot of the Gorilla products. Very similar to E6000 or Shoe Goo or Goop. This is actually my most scale rig to date. This would be considered a Class 1 rig. If you guys are new to scale crawling competitions, I'm very new to it. SORRCA puts out a series of standardized rules every year. I'll put a link to the 2020 ones below. Basically lays out all the rules, restrictions, and requirements for a Class 1, a Class 2, or a Class 3 rig if you were to be competing in a scale competition. So what kind of points would I get if I were competing with this rig? So according to the SORRCA rules, you're gonna get 12 points for having a full hard body. So right off the bat, you're gonna get a lot of points just for having a hard body itself. I also got 2 points for having a metal roll bar. You're gonna get 1 point for having plastic sliders, 7 points for 2 axle leaf springs. So that's another plug for leaf springs if you're competing in scale RC. Having a chassis mounted servo is gonna give you 5 points. You're also going to get up to 6 points for each of your non-functional scale accessories. So I have my jerry can here, a water jug, a battery, a fire extinguisher, a bucket, a shovel. So that's going to get me 6 points right there. And then I'm going to get another 2 points for functional accessories. So my headlights and my tail lights will count for 2 points. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this build progression. It was a big learning experience for me. I almost gave up a couple times, but thank you to you guys for all the encouragement, all the tips that you gave me. I think this came together really nicely and I couldn't have done it without you. I'm gonna do a little montage of photos that people have sent me along the way as I was doing this build that really inspired me to push this through to the finish line. that is it for all the jabbering about this rig. Now let's take it outside on the trail and see how it performs.